What's going on, dudes? It is David here. We are back with another video. Now, in this video, guys, we shall be talking about basically the NFL's quarterback development problem. And I say development problem because a lot of people are just throwing out the label of a bust throughout the first two seasons if the quarterback has a bad progression. And we guys you guys got to remember how it was back in the day with Peyton Manning, Tom Brady during their rookie season. Peyton Manning had a horrible rookie season. Is Peyton Manning a bust? Hell fucking no. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback and one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And I think that goes down to just how the system is currently right now. And I can't even lie to you about that because Fernando Mendoza is going to have a ton of pressure. And I believe that what they did in the Raiders system is the right thing to do. Is to not just throw them out there, because if we look at some quarterbacks that have just been thrown out there that were not ready, the biggest example I can name right now that probably wasn't ready to be a starting quarterback is Anthony Richardson. And I understand Anthony Richardson the most because he's a Florida Gator. He came from my college, the University of Florida. So him getting thrown out there as the number 4 overall pick by the Indianapolis Colts, and he was horrible, and people are labeling him as a bust. But I actually do believe that if he had developed properly and not been thrown out there right there, Anthony Richardson could have had some potential in that general standpoint. And if we're looking at some other cases where, like a quarterback has been thrown out there and not really performed well, look how bad Caleb Williams was. Like everybody was talking about Caleb Williams had a bad season, and then he brought in the right coach and surrounded him with weapons, surrounded him with offensive line, and Caleb Williams is looking like the number 1 overall pick that he is. Do I expect Fernando Mendoza to have a bad season when he's starting? Of course. Even when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is just a rookie, but even in his games, yes, he was making a lot of mistakes, but rookie quarterbacks, young quarterbacks are going to continue to make those mistakes. It's all about progression and how to, change the dynamic. And hold on, I just remember one of the biggest examples of why the quarterback development system does not work. Sam Darnold. Let's not forget, Sam Darnold was a pick by the New York Jets, and everybody, including me, was labeling Sam Darnold as a bust. But Sam Darnold, in the past couple of seasons, after gaining experience, being in a different system, has gained enough experience to where he went from Minnesota to Seattle and is now a Super Bowl champion. So I think that gives you guys just a perfect example of why the NFL has a quarterback development problem. And I think in order to fix this quarterback development problem, even though it's going to be asking a lot, you gotta let these guys have at least I would say 2-3 years to develop properly, and not just label them as a bust and everybody start firing people. He should be fired. He should be fired. Maybe it is a coach. Maybe it's not. But at the end of the day, the quarterbacks have to develop. If Joe Burrow didn't have his development, Joe Burrow still makes mistakes. Joe Burrow is still a young quarterback. Patrick Mahomes is technically young at this standpoint right now. Justin Herbert's very young. Justin Herbert's very young and making mistakes. And another example I wanted to say is look at Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence had to deal with 4 different head coaches in the start of the season, and everybody up until I think this past season, including myself, was looking at Trevor Lawrence as a possible bust, and he was a number 1 overall pick. But you got to give these times to develop, because as they get time to develop, they're going to continuing get better and better and better. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. But in my personal opinion, I think you got to at least give them at least 2 to 3 years to develop, because then you'll really be able to stand out and see how they are in that general standpoint. And I go back to the biggest example from the previous years, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning had a horrible rookie season, and Peyton Manning got more development, eventually learned more experience. He was a number 1 overall pick, and I bet you if Peyton Manning had done that, in nowadays people have been looking at Peyton Manning like, oh, Peyton Manning's not really that good, but he ended up turning out to be one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And like I said, recent examples I could look at Trevor Lawrence and Sam Darnold are just 2 examples. So it just really goes to show you that I think the quarterback development process is literally just needs to be fixed. I would probably say if you want to really be the case, do what the Colts are doing, do what the Raiders are doing, sign an experienced quarterback and have your rookie quarterback, sit behind them for a few games, and then, throw them out there for a couple of games. They make mistakes, then they make mistakes, and just see how they develop in general. Because once you're able to like have them gain experience, and like once they come into the system and they start getting more experiences, if they still continue to perform bad, then you know that they're not going to be really as good. But if they start to perform better as they get more experience and everything like that, then you really know that what you got for you is a franchise quarterback and a future QB for the star QB for the future. So I want to know what your guys' opinions are in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys all next time. Peace.